You know the story, right? A company spends a ton of money on a brand new HR platform, they're rolling out all these AI tools, and they launch this huge digital transformation. But then, a year goes by and nothing's really changed. So much effort for such underwhelming results. So what is actually going on? Let's get into the real reason so many of these big projects just fizzle out.
I mean, just look at this number. 70%. A staggering 70% of these massive projects just don't hit their goals. Think about that. It's an incredible waste of money, of time, of energy. But the reason for this massive failure rate is usually hiding in plain sight. And here's a hint. It has almost nothing to do with the technology.
And this slide, well, it cuts right to the chase. The truth is, most of what we call transformation is really just putting a new coat of paint on old, broken processes. We're just modernizing. And the rules, the governance, they're always playing catch-up, like 6 to 12 months behind the new tools. But the biggest, most expensive myth of all, it's the belief that if you just buy the right platform, people will magically start using it. This right here, from HR systems expert Alexandra Keels, absolutely nails it. A platform doesn't make people do anything. People do. Good processes do. And a clear reason why they should do it, that's what drives adoption. A new tool is just a tool. If your team doesn't see how it makes their lives easier, they're just going to ignore it. The problem isn't the tech, it's a people problem. It's a trust problem.
So here's our game plan. We're going to break down 2 of the most common ways these projects fail. Then we'll talk about the critical mindset shift you need to make. I'll give you a concrete 30, 60, 90-day action plan. And finally, we'll cover how to talk about all this in a way that the business actually understands and buys into. All right, let's dive into our first diagnosis: solving the completely wrong problem. And there's no better example of this than the big push to become a skills-based organization. It sounds amazing on paper, but in reality, this is where things often go completely off the rails.
Okay, so picture this. A company rolls out a fancy new platform to track everyone's skills. 2 months later, they look at the data, and only 30% of employees have even bothered to fill out their profile. So now the data is totally incomplete, managers don't trust it for a second, and finding internal talent is still a nightmare. Sound familiar?
So, you're in charge. What do? Right? Is the answer to send out more angry emails? Do you start blaming the software? The knee-jerk reaction is to focus on that 70% who haven't done it. But honestly, that's almost always the wrong move.
Here's a much smarter way to play it. First, forget the 70% for a minute and go talk to the 30% who are using it. What's working for them? Why did they do it? Next, take those insights and run a small pilot with your best teams. Get their managers completely bought in by connecting profile completion to their actual goals. And finally, prove the value on a small scale. Show that it leads to, say, faster internal promotions. You build trust with a small win, and then you earn the right to scale.
Okay, on to our second big failure mode, the scattered approach. This is what happens when a company is just buzzing with activity, especially with AI right now, but none of it ever really connects or adds up to anything meaningful for the business. It's just chaos.
You see this flurry of random pilots. This team over here is using AI to rewrite job descriptions. Another one is using it for sourcing. A third team is trying out a help desk chatbot. But here's the problem. There's no single owner for any of it. Nobody knows what success even looks like, and the security team is basically a permanent roadblock. It's just a lot of motion without any real progress.
So what's the solution? Well, it's a little counterintuitive. You have to slow down to speed up. First, just pause. Stop everything except maybe the top 2 or 3 pilots that have the absolute clearest path to making or saving money. Then, for each of those, assign a single, dedicated owner who is on the hook for progress. And most importantly, you have to define what success looks like before you even begin. Now, these 2 problems, solving the wrong thing and the scattered, chaotic approach, they're really just symptoms of a much deeper issue. And that issue is a lack of what's called systems thinking. This isn't just a new tactic, it's a completely different way of seeing the world. And it is absolutely critical for any real transformation.
So, what is systems thinking? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a spider web. An organization is a giant interconnected web. If you poke one part of it, the entire thing vibrates. When you introduce a change in one spot, like a new piece of tech, it's going to have ripple effects you might not expect everywhere else.
So for example, let's say AI starts changing how work gets done. Well, that doesn't just change a task. It immediately changes how you have to measure performance. And that changes what skills people need to learn.
which in the end reshapes their entire career path. See? You can't just look at one piece. You have to see the whole system.
This is why Keels' quote about building a hive mind is just so perfect. Nothing in a business truly exists in a silo. Just like in that AI example, when you're working on one little part of the hive, you have to understand how it connects to everything else. If you don't, things are guaranteed to break somewhere down the line. Okay, so this all sounds great, but how do we make it real? Let's get super practical. Here's a 30, 60, 90-day action plan that you can literally start using tomorrow to move from chaos to clarity.
So here it is, your first 90 days. For the first 30 days, your only job is to figure out where you are right now. Establish the baseline. Find that single source of truth about what's working and what's broken. Then, in the next 30 days, from day 31 to 60, your job is to get 3 small validated wins. That's it. And start telling the stories about the value you created. Then, by day 90, you're ready to systematize. You can start building a nimble process that can deliver success over and over again.
All right, last piece of the puzzle. None of this works, not the plan, not the mindset, unless you can get buy-in from your most important partners in the business. And that means you have to start speaking their language. It's all about translating what you do into tangible business impact. It's about building trust.
When you talk to your CFO, it's actually pretty simple. Stop using the word cost. Start using the word investment. Show them the return on that investment using the same metrics and terms they already use every single day. With your Chief Information Officer, the key word is partnership. You're not just another department asking for something. You are their partner in building a tech architecture that works for the whole company. And, this is critical, respects their rules on security and governance.
And for your head of ops, show them you are perfectly in sync. Your talent calendar will mirror their business calendar. Your deadlines are their deadlines. Make it clear that their #1 goal, operational excellence, is the exact same goal as your HR transformation.
So, at the end of the day, it all comes back to this one simple idea. Real transformation was never about the technology. It's about solving the right problems, thinking about the entire system, and above all else, it's about building trust. So the only question left for you is, who do you need to go build it with first?